This is a quick video, hopefully, of how to set up and use my Blackboard contact form JavaScript that I wrote. So first we go to a course where we want to build it. So here I go into any Blackboard course. And I had it set up in a content area. So go into or create a content area. Okay. And build content, and this is just an item, so click item. The title in an item is required, but the form itself already has a title, and plus the page name is visible here at the top anyway, so I sometimes would like to switch that to all white so it becomes invisible. White isn't one of the colors here, so if you do 6 letter Fs, hit apply, that'll turn it white. Okay, so we go to HTML, the HTML button. You may have to expand your edit bar like that, and then HTML. Okay, now we go to the wiki page. It's at edtech.wiki.umb.edu, and then scroll down in the navigation area on the left. It's not organized, but under articles, close to the bottom, is Blackboard content form. And that will list, have the code here selectable. So you want to start right from this opening bracket script here and scroll to the very bottom of the final script. Copy. Okay, so back in Blackboard and back in the HTML code view, you can paste, and there's all the code. Right, make sure you get from the very beginning script with that less than sign to the end script with the greater than sign, and click update. Okay, nothing will show up here, which is fine. Click submit, and if you see the form like that, you know it's working, and you can double check by seeing all of the data populated in these 4 boxes here at the end. 5 boxes. Now the form, when submitted, will automatically send the submission or the contents to JITBIT. In case that's not working, this is my favorite website, Zapier.com, ZAPIER.com. I have it already set up, but we would, if you need to recreate this, make a new Zap. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly so you can rewind. Trigger app is the trigger. The thing that starts all of this is Google Docs. It's a Google Doc form. And the trigger is a new spreadsheet row, right? So when you submit a form, it adds that content to a spreadsheet. So new spreadsheet form, or row rather. Scroll over, and the action app is JITBIT. And the action that happens is it creates a new ticket. And scroll back and click continue. Now it may be that JITBIT doesn't show up in this list. You may have to request that it is added from JITBIT. So if you contact JITBIT support, they can help you get JITBIT to show up in this list. It may be here. So step 2 is to connect the Google account where the Google Doc lives. I've already done that, but you can click connect to a Google account and sign in there. Then you have to connect it to your JITBIT account. Connect to JITBIT. That's already done here though. Click continue. Okay, so first it asks which spreadsheet is it. And so you find this spreadsheet with the responses, and then you have to pick which worksheet within the spreadsheet. It's usually worksheet 1. And then you have to fill in the field from the form to go into JITBIT. So who's the submitter's email, and that's the email row or column. Category ID. This is a little tricky. This 91029 is the category ID for the uncategorized category that we have in JITBIT. So that's hard-coded, 91029. Subject is the problem summary field. Body text starts with the problem detail field, but then it has, you can see, right, the bullet points that we have for each of the settings, or each of the different, name, email, and so on. The link is mostly pre-coded or hard-coded, and course URL is just the bit that changes each time. And so let me show all this again so you can pause it and take a screenshot if you need to recreate this. Okay, so scroll back down, and I named it UMB LMS support form and turn Zap on. And so if you're testing it, that I think only happens every 5 or 10 minutes automatically. You can go into Zapier and trigger it manually, but you shouldn't have to do that. It'll happen automatically. Okay, so I'm going to spend the rest of this video going through what the actual code does in case you need ever to make any changes. Okay, the first line is the base URL. This is the direct link to the form itself. So you can, if you bring up the form and look at the URL like that, it's this first part here, right? Okay, so the next line, this is a little bit tricky. This helps us get the URL to the direct link to the course itself. And the way it does that is it looks for the course menu combo in the source code of the course, and the course that actually is this little home icon. So if you look at the code in the document, you're getting an element based on its ID, right? Get element by ID. The ID you're telling it to look for is course menu underscore combo. And if we look at the source code of the course, let me resize. You can see that this home, you can see the home button highlights right there. This chunk of code powers this home button, and the ID here is course menu combo. So it looks for course menu combo. The next bit of code is it wants the href of whatever element has that ID, and the href in this case is this here. So this is the URL of the course's homepage, and it takes part of that. It doesn't take all of it though, because we only need the course ID part, so let me show you that. Unfortunately, the course ID is not the same as what we're used to the course ID is. The course ID in Blackboard code stuff is, here you can see if I copy the link address of this home button and paste it here in a text document, this is the link that it powers, and the course ID is this bit here. And the best way I found to find this is by looking up the href of that icon. So that's what that line does. A lot of the next bit is powered by the Blackboard template variables. So if you Google Blackboard variables, first option here, Blackboard template variables. This is an out-of-date version, but there's another one that's more up-to-date. The content's the same, but you can see anytime you use this text, any of these text in an item or anywhere, it populates it with automatically something else. So right here's the full name, and if you type that into an item, you get the actual full name. So what we do first is we look for the member role. Here's the member role, the user role. It's called in the documentation. That's user role. Here, membership role. It returns just a single letter, right? So G is a grader, P is instructor somehow. So if we go back to the code, it gets the member role, which is a single letter, and then it uses a switch case, some code, to take the single letter and turn the letter into the full text version of the name. So if it's a B, then it turns into course builder. If it's a G, it types out grader. So this just makes it more clear, so we don't have to look at the letters. The code takes care of that. Okay, so the next bit here, this fields, this is going to be added onto the URL. We'll look at that in a second, but this is what populates the form. So if we scroll over, each of these entry, and this is not intuitive, but these entry and the numbers represent a text box on the form. And you can find out what each of those numbers are back in your form. Under responses, get pre-filled URL. And so if I wanted to pre-fill, for example, the name, I can just type, whenever someone comes to this address, the name will automatically be populated with 123. And I click submit, and it gives you the URL with that so that when so let me show you, select all, copy, paste and go. So whenever I send someone to this URL, 123 is automatically populated. And now if you look back at this URL and look for the 123, right there, right? There's 123 in the URL. That's how it's passed. The variable is passed. This name here is what controls the name text box here. So I found that and assigned it to the Blackboard variable for the full name, right? Back to that Blackboard variable list to see more. So that's the full name with a space in between, you know, John space Mazzarella. User ID is their username. I included the @umb.edu, so that automatically puts the email address. Course name is the full text course name, so not the course ID, but the full English course name. The next bit here is course ID, and this is the course ID that we're familiar with, not the course ID from previously that we're not familiar with for the URL, so that's confusing, but it's not something we can control. This next bit is the other course ID, right? So I named it course URL ID to try to make it a little bit more clear. But that passes that. Next is the membership role, but not the letter, right? Remember, we used the case switch thing to change it to the full text version. And this probably can be deleted, but I just left it in. That's fine. Okay, next bit is it takes what we just put together. When you add in the user, the full name, which is user ID, I think. No, full name. It adds, I think, a middle name, and if you don't have a middle name, it puts two spaces together, which has caused problems. So I replaced anytime in this text that there are two spaces, replace it with one. Also, I think it tries to add a title, so Dr. John Mazzarella someday. And if you don't have that, then it puts a space in front of the name, which also has caused problems. So it looks for anytime, right? So it sets the variable name equals and then the contents. And if there's a space in the full name, then it would find equals space. And so it looks for equals space and replaces it with just equals. Same thing at the end if there's a space at the end of the full name, right? So this all would be replaced with the full name, and if there's a space at the end, you would find space and so that's what it looks for, space ampersand, and replace it with just ampersand. So it does all those replaces, and then it builds the final URL based on the base URL right here near the top. This is the same thing that does not ever change. It's the hard-coded form, and then the fields, right? Base URL plus fields. This is all the custom stuff. And it constructs the actual URL that it's going to embed on the page. Okay, so next is document write. So JavaScript is writing some code now, some text, and it's doing this as an iframe. I had a lot of trouble with quotation marks within quotation marks. Usually I would do a single quote, but Blackboard has a problem with single quotes. So instead, even though I have a double quote here, I have another double quote in the text itself, and I just escaped it. And then there's the URL that was set here, and so width and height, and then some style, right? Frame border, margin height, margin width, and scrolling. Okay, next line. So if someone doesn't have a for some reason the iframe doesn't load, although in that case probably the JavaScript wouldn't work either, and they would never see this, but there's a note that's included at the bottom of the iframe, which has the URL directly. In this case, it actually doesn't bother trying to pass it doesn't bother trying to pass all the fields. It just sends them directly to the URL. We might have changed this to just URL, remove the base, and that might work. I think that might have had some problems. Anyway, something to try. Okay, what's next? Oh yeah. So this is another thing, weird Blackboard problem. What I wanted is if this text to have a link that says, if the iframe doesn't load, click here to. Oh, I see what it is. Okay, if the iframe doesn't work, click the following URL to load the form. The text of the link is the base URL without any of the custom fields, but I had a problem setting the href of the link within the document right, but only in Blackboard. Blackboard is weird about JavaScript. So what I did is I wrote the link, right, A, and normally you do a href. Instead, I didn't do the href, and I added an ID and the target, so it opens in a new window, and the text, but no actual link. And I had to set the link, the href, separately. So the ID of this link is form link, and it gets another get element by ID looking for form link, and it sets that to a variable, and then sets the href of that variable to the full URL. And I was wrong earlier. It is going to populate this link with all of the fields populated, just not the displayed text with all of the fields. So the displayed text is the base URL. The actual link is the full URL. And that's it. So hopefully you'll never need to watch this video. If you do, hopefully it's not too crazy confusing. I'm sure it's going to take several watchings, and you might reach out to someone from web services who, or maybe Bin, who does some programming, who is more familiar with JavaScript. Okay, good luck.